All right, good morning. So today we're going to be covering these first three commands here on the solids. So creating a sketch. So this is a way to get a more complex shape to create rather than using one of the primitives. And then once we draw that shape using sketch, we go use either extrude to just pull it out and make it 3D, or revolve to spin it around to make it 3D. So those are the kind of, this is the main tool to get to being able to use those. And then these are the main ways that I create geometry. I don't use the primitives most of the time, except for coil and pipe, because those are kind of special ones. But for anything else, I'll either sketch it and then extrude or revolve it. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to click sketch. In order to sketch, you have to sketch on something flat. So right now I don't have an object, so all I have is my three main planes. So I'm just going to pick a plane. There you go. And so one thing that's going to happen for you is if you go into your initials and go to preferences, and then go to design, there's this option right here called auto look at sketch, and that'll be on by default. And so what happens if you create a sketch, let me turn off my history. If I create a sketch and I pick there, it's going to flip it around and look straight at it. I suggest turning that off. Go to preferences, design, auto look at sketch, and turn that off. It's much better to get used to working with it in some kind of pictorial view rather than looking straight at it, because sometimes what will happen is it'll bring it in, especially if you're sketching on a face of an object, and it'll spin it a direction that you don't realize, and then you'll think that you're drawing up and down, but you're really drawing side to side. So I don't like that option at all. The only time I look straight at things is if I just need to look and check something. I don't use it for drawing ever. So we have a sketch created. Now it's time to start drawing our shape. So when you're drawing your shape here, you don't need to draw it exact. The idea is to get the right number of pieces of geometry on the screen. I have some general rules. 8 pieces of geometry max, preferably less than 6, and just kind of get the shape drawn out. Also, we're not going to do any curves unless we need to dimension to the centers of those curves. Most of my sketches start with either a circle. So if I want to draw a cylinder, I can just draw a circle, start it, hit it on the center point. Something needs to touch the origin, draw it out, and then I'll dimension and tell it how big to be. So say 3 inches. Even though there's an option while you're drawing that circle to type a number, don't do it. Just create it, and then go back and dimension and add it in. And so let's say I did that one, I wanted to draw a cylinder. I can do that, hit finish, and then extrude, and then just pull that out to be however long I want it to be. I'll just do that. So I'm going to open that 5. All right. So now I have a cylinder. So now if I want to create another sketch, I can create a sketch. I can click on those 3 main planes. If I click just off of the object, it'll automatically go to whichever one is closest. Or I can click on the actual face of the object. So now if I want to draw something on the top of this, like a keyway maybe, I can click there. And now you can see the sketch is centered there. And so now I can sketch. And so let's say I want to draw a keyway. So it's going to go down, over, and then up. So I'm going to use the line. I want to use that. The little X means that it's going to snap to the arc. I'll just draw it over and up. Let's see. I don't even need to be super accurate about it because we have what is called constraints. So right here we have constraints. So we have horizontal and vertical. It'll just make it snap to whatever is closest. Coincident, which will make 2 points join together, or make a point be in like on a line even if it's not on the line. So if I draw a line over here and I go coincident, I can pick that point in that line. And now that point, I can move side to side, but it's always going to line up with that line. If I bid coincident 2 points, it's going to make those points join together. Okay. We have tangent, making a line tangent to an arc. Equal, to make 2 lines equal length. Parallel, to make lines parallel, perpendicular. Midpoint, so we can snap things to midpoints. Concentric. Collinear is two lines are going to line up with each other. And those are the ones that we'll use. We don't use fix, don't use symmetry, and only if you're doing a spline would you use this. So I need to make this line line up straight. I could use horizontal vertical. I could use a parallel from this line to this line. Or I can do perpendicular, that line to that line. It doesn't matter. I'll just use that because it only takes one click. Now if I move this around, I just grab a corner and drag. You can see it's behaving kind of correctly. If I grab the line will move. Love this, that line will move. But if you grab a corner, it'll let you move in both directions. So if I want this to be centered, what kind of relationships would I need to make this thing stay centered? And so in order to be centered, this line and this line have to be the same length, right? If I pull this line over here, where now it's the same length, it's centered. I can kind of see that there. So I'll use the equal constraint there to there. And now it's centered. If I move this side in, that side's going to come in also. And so this is kind of the steps. You create geometry. You use the edge of the geometry of existing stuff if you have it. If not, you go to the origin. You create your geometry. You add constraints so it behaves correctly. If you want it to be centered, it's behaving centered. You want it tangent, whatever. And now we can add dimensions on how big it is. So we can go to D for dimension, or you can just hit the dimension button up here. I can click the line. Once you click a line, if you pull the dimension out, it'll go out parallel to that line. I can set that down, I can say 1 inch. This is a big QA. But now I can pick, if I pick two lines, so one line is wanting to go there, two lines that are parallel will give me the dimension between those two lines. If I pick this line, and I already have that one selected, now it's going to give me the angle of any lines that are not parallel. I could also dimension from here, and let's say I want to go to this point right here. So if I just click the circle, it's going to give me the dimension from that line to the center of the circle. But I want to go to this point here. So I'm going to dimension, escape a couple times, dimension, that line, right click, circle arc, tangent. And I go here, you can see the little X right there, the quadrant. Now I get that dimension. Tell it to be a 1/4 inch. Okay, now I can just finish, extrude, pick that little piece, and tell it how far I want it to cut down. So I can go down a little bit. And so there's options I have here. So start is telling me where do I want the cut to start, or the addition. If I go up away from it, you can see the operation change from cut to join. And so under there, I have options of the profile plane. So wherever I sketched it, I can say an offset plane. And so I can tell it to go start at -1/4. And so now it's not going to cut for 1/4, and then it's going to start that distance of -1. And so the direction, the negative, is anything away from the part is positive, anything towards the or into the part is negative. Or I can have from object, so if I had another plane somewhere, I could do that. So usually we'll just start, we use profile plane, and then for the extents, we have distance, we have to object, and we have all. So if I wanted this to cut all the way through this, I can say all, and it goes all the way through. If I don't want it to go to just a certain distance, I can say distance. This isn't as important here in direct modeling, but once we turn on the history and we start using parametric modeling, these terminations, the extents is really important. Okay, so there's that cut. So now again, I could create a cut down here or whatever. So that's creating a sketch in Extrude. But let's say now I want to make a larger diameter, and it's going to be like a V. So I can create a sketch, and so I can go here and sketch on that middle section of the cylinder. And I want to make like a V shape. I'm going to go up a little bit, come down, go up, and so it'll have like a pulley or something. And so, because this was on that face, I have a point, but I like to actually, I don't like just to go by that, I like to have an actual line. And so if you go to create, project and include, and project, this will let you bring edges from somewhere else in the object onto your sketch plane. So if we go to project, pick the circle, you can see I've got that little red line showing up, and click, now I have a purple line right there. Say okay. So that purple line is lined up where this edge is perfectly. I'll show you how that works over here also, where there's not something already there. So if I click here, just by hovering over it, you can see it's going to bring that edge forward onto the sketch plane. If I go here, same thing. Go here, same thing. Or if I click on a point, it'll bring that just that point. So let's say I want to draw from here up. I'll have it come over flat, go down, go back up. And I'm just going to draw it back to the halfway point. And then I'm just going to go in and add my constraints. So equals there. Right now these two sides are going, I want these to line up with each other, so I'm going to use collinear, there to there. I want this V to be equal on both sides, so I'm going to use equal there and there. And I want these shoulders to be equal also. There we go. So now it's behaving the way I want it to behave. So now I can dimension from this line up to here, and there, make it 2 inches. So it goes up a little bit. I want this shoulder here to be 1/4. So I hit escape. Now I can just move this around and see still how it can behave. So this still can go up and down. So maybe I'd tell it that from this line to this line, I want that angle to be 160. Oh, no, maybe less. Maybe I want that to be 80, whatever. So I can just double click on that number and change it for now. Maybe I'll make it 100. There you go. So as you can see, as I'm dimensioning it, things are getting locked down. They're turning black for things that can't change anymore, and things that still can change are blue. Then I can dimension. I tell it from, let's say I actually want to go from here to that side. So I can click on this edge, and then this edge here, and come down until I want that to be 8 inches total. I can finish the sketch, revolve, so it picks my profile because I don't have one closed profile, and I can pick the axis, and it's going to pick that and spin it around. So in order to do either extrude or revolve, you have to have a closed profile in your sketch. So if I create a sketch here real quick, you see it's open, there's an opening here. We have these white circles. The sun is where the opening is. And if I drag it, those white circles disappear, and now it turns shaded in the middle. And that's over here on the side where it's the show profile, that turns on and off that shading. Okay, so anytime the sketch is open, you're gonna have those white circles. That means you have to close it. You have to get those to go away before you can use either extrude or revolve. So there we go. And so I'm going to do a quick thing real quick. I'm going to do a fillet. This is why we don't sketch the curves, because it's easier just to add that in afterwards. Okay. So I could do a cut here. So if I want like a ring for a groove or an O-ring or something, again, I could create a sketch, click here, and I'm going to go to project. So anytime you don't sketch on the object, you want to project the geometry from it. That way you know where that thing is. So I could either project here, and give me that. Or if I go in and go to project and include, and I say intersect, now I can pick the face, and I'll get that line where it it intersects. So that's actually what I want. So I'll say okay. But now I'm drawing in the middle of this part. So I'm going to hit slice right here on the sketch, and now it's going to do a section. So we talked about that in the other class. So I still have my little purple line here, but now I'm seeing the inside of the part, so I'm not trying to draw where I can't see. So now I can just do a circle. Maybe I put it here. Tell it how big to be. Tell it how far over I want it. And finish. So it's there. Or do a revolve. I pick that. I really don't need the top half. I don't need the bottom half of it. But because there's a solid line that went through that, it made two separate profiles. And I can pick an axis. I can just pick the cylinder and say okay. All right. So another common thing that we'll do is we want to center things on rectangular. So if I create a sketch here, let's say I want to have another slot going like this. I can just draw a rectangle like this and just draw it anywhere. And now I'm going to use midpoint from that line to that line. And now that rectangle is centered on that other line. Okay. So that's the basics. Create a sketch, pick something to sketch on if you're picking on a face of something. So I could pick here, flat face. I can't sketch on the outside of here because that's not flat. Now sketch something. Let's say I want to make a little relief coming up there. So draw a rectangle. Don't be exact. Just get in there, and then you use your geometry, your constraints to line it up, and then dimension how big you want it to be. And then do something with it. Okay. So that is using Extrude and Revolve. Again, if you see the objects there, so if I decide that, oh no, I don't want that cut out there, I can just click on this extrude, delete it, or whatever. Or I don't want this, that O-ring, I can just click on it and delete it. So once you have a feature, you can always click on it and take it away. Or you need to move it, just use this press pull, grab the face, decide, oh, I want it a little shorter there, and I need to make this one deeper, whatever. I want to make this a little bit wider, do press pull, grab both those sides, and now I can adjust both of them at once. Okay, so have fun learning how to do your sketches using Extrude and Revolve. This is how I make 90% of my geometry is those kind of sketches. And usually my sketches are really simple, rectangles, maybe just a line or two, depending on what I need to do. It's like if I needed to do a V cut right here, I can create a sketch, and I'll just draw two lines, make those two lines equal. So, but it's not centered. So how would I make that centered? What could I do? I have a midpoint here, but that's not on here. So we also want to draw as few other things as we can. So one way is I could draw a line from that midpoint. So as I move this over, I get to that little center point, and I get a little triangle next to it. Same triangles up here from midpoint. And click there and then go to the vertex there. And then I can say vertical there, and it brings it over. And now it's centered. But now it broke this up into two profiles. So if I don't want that, I can click on this line and say construction. And now it's just one profile. So that's one way. Another way is I could create a point right there. Or did I already have another point? I already have a point right there, right? That's centered on the part. So I can just go vertical between that vertex of the triangle and that center point. And it does the same thing. Now I can just dimension between those 2 points, between that point and that line. Oh, now that I have this, I can show you another way of dimensioning. So if I dimension, I pick an angled line. I have the option, depending on where I move the mouse, coming straight out, aligned with that dimension. If I move the mouse over here, now I'll get the horizontal dimension. If I move the mouse up here, I'll get the vertical dimension. Okay. Also, another thing is if I dimension, I have a line, then I pick a point somewhere, it'll give me the distance perpendicular from that line to that point. So like here, it's kind of, there we go. So if I pick this line, that point, you can see it's the perpendicular distance. So the dimension line that has the number on it is perpendicular to the original line I picked. And so knowing this helps you to kind of figure out, depending on how you want to dimension things, what to pick. So I could just pick this line and just go this way, tell it how tall it'll be, finish, extrude, cut back into it. Okay, so have fun doing those. Remember, keep your sketches simple. There's a lot of videos out there that make big complex sketches, even this one, that include that arc in the sketch, in the sample. Don't do that. It's much better to draw this shape here, square, and then add the fillet using the fillet tool. Because if you can use a feature, so something from the modify toolbar or like the hole, that's a lot easier to manage than making it in the sketch. So, all right, talk to you later.